Hello everyone, this is Robert with Team Copperhead, and in this video I'm going to talk about our second fight of Season 6, which was against Team Waiachi's Fusion. If you haven't seen that episode yet, go ahead and check that out, and come back and we'll talk about it. So how did we feel about this matchup with Fusion? We felt pretty good about it. Not for any reason of we thought we could beat them, nothing like that. We just knew that this was going to be a fun fight, and sometimes you have to step back as a builder and just realize that, hey, this is going to be a fun fight and everyone's going to enjoy it. Any fight where the fans are really excited, we're really excited about it too. So we're pretty happy getting a fight with Fusion, and it's always fun to fight Team Waiachi. So in terms of configuring and prepping for this fight, we really didn't need to do a whole lot after the Lockjaw fight. If you remember my past recap, I talked about that we were still having some drive issues, but we figured that out pretty much right after the Lockjaw fight. Talked to some other teams, figured out that there was just some interference and a couple other little settings. Tweak that, we were looking good on the drive front, as you can see in this fight. As far as the actual configuration of the bot, we really don't have a lot we can do. We basically have a couple different top plates. We have the two different bots, which are slightly different in weight. We have the magnets, and we have that cross member. We decided for the new drive configuration, the new tweaking that we did, we're going to leave the magnets off for this time. We figured that there was going to be a lot of really big hits, and those magnet pods do get detached relatively easy. Magnets are very fragile and they tend to shatter. And the last thing you want to have happen is have those magnets shatter and then stick to the underside of your bot, and then you get high-sided. They can stick to the floor and create kind of an issue there. So we decided to not have the magnets for right there and just kind of test the drive on its own merits. I don't really know ultimately why we didn't do the cross brace, because Fusion does have a horizontal spinner. Maybe it's because we saw the first fight and they weren't using it. I don't really know. It's been several months since this happened, but we decided not to use that horizontal cross brace and then decided to use that extra weight then for a heavier top panel. The heavier top panel is nice because it puts more weight right over top of the wheels, which gives us a little bit more traction and helps the drive. So here's something interesting, and this is one of the reasons why you guys like watching these fight recaps. We actually had a separate fight with them on a different day, but Fusion actually went up in flames at the start box. We were ready. We did the whole entrance. You know, Farouk did his thing. We get up there, 3, 2, and then flames. It happened on the countdown. We just saw flames puff out. They stopped the fight, canceled it. They went back, and I talked with them actually earlier today or yesterday, and they said that it was, you know, once again the ESCs that they were having issues with. They completely gutted those. That was the last time they used them, and then they switched over to a different ESC for this fight. And yeah, so that was interesting. So there was kind of this false start type of thing. And I guess normally in a robot combat kind of situation, that would maybe be a forfeit, but come on, it's Battlebots. You got to have a fight. So we pushed that fight back to the next day, or production pushed that fight back to the next day, and they got their bot ready to go, and we did a second one. So we were like, I don't know, mildly irritated, I guess, that we spent all this time getting the bot ready, getting everything going, and you know, the adrenaline's pumping and you're getting all psyched up for it, and then 3, 2, 1, and then it stops, and it's kind of jarring. So we were a little bit irritated and annoyed going back into the next fight, just because your nerves and jitters are all heightened. So that's why we were driving maybe a little bit more aggressively than normal, because we wanted to kind of, I don't know, take out some of those frustrations on Fusion. So our strategy with Fusion is the same strategy that we will have throughout this entire season, and that is weapon to weapon. For Fusion, it's a little bit different because ultimately we want to tax their electronic system by making them come up to speed as many times as possible. So with a weapon like, let's just use Copperhead as an example, we're actually pushing about 350 amps when we go from a dead stop to full power. So 350 amps worth of current, and that lasts for about 4 seconds. Once the drum is up to speed and idling, it's, I think, between 40 and 60 amps worth of current draw, so really significantly less, and that's really easy for the electronics to handle. Now for Fusion, our goal was to try and make them come up to speed as many times as possible. So if we can hit them, slow it down, then it has to ramp back up, hit it, slow it down, and then ramp back up. And that is just a lot of energy that's going into those ESCs. Hopefully that taxes it, makes them smoke, makes them fail, and that was ultimately the strategy and pretty much what ended up happening. So this strategy ended up paying off. We got the drum up to speed pretty quickly and then just touched them early on, and from there it was just touch, 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 touch. And we really only backed off when we wanted to kind of get more of a running start at them so that we could get more engagement on the drum and actually pop them into the air. When you just kind of stay on them consistently, you're just going to kind of grind more, and you're not going to have as much of an opportunity to actually catch and flip or catch and, remove some pieces. So we just kind of got really close into them, made sure that the weapons were stopping, hung back a little bit, circled, came back in again, and it worked out quite well for us. They did get a few hits on us, but that was kind of the intention, as we wanted to make contact with those weapons, and they did actually take some little chunks and gouges out of the frame, but I really don't think people understand just how beefy the front end of Copperhead is with the actual weapon axle mounts on either side. There's some instances where that's up to probably 3 or 4 inches thick of hardox, which is similar to AR 500. So our frame is very similar to what a lot of people are using in terms of weapons, and in a lot of cases it's much thicker. If you think about like vertical disc spinners being 1 inch thick, we have a lot of places up front that are 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 inches thick, depending on kind of how you look at it. So hitting the front end is not really super fun for anyone. So it really didn't matter to us that much, just kind of feeding that front end into them. And if it ends up hitting our drum, even better. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And let's now look at some of the damage from that fight. Overall, Copperhead fared pretty well. We really didn't have anything to fix. There was nothing really for us to do. We just kind of swapped batteries and we were ready for the next fight. The front end got some scrapes and some scuffs, but once again, it's just so thick that even a 1/4 inch gouge into the frame really just doesn't do that much. It's mostly just cosmetic, and it makes it really sharp and hazardous to deal with. So we end up having to file all these things down after a fight, because just touching it, you can get really nasty deep cuts on your hands. But yeah, ultimately nothing too critical. Generally, when you're looking at these photos, if it doesn't have rust patina or doesn't have paint on it, that's going to be new. However, after every fight that we have, we're not going to be re-rusting it. We're going to sometimes paint it, but it's just kind of hard to see what accumulates after a fight because, we have a lot of fights. And this frame has been used for 3 years now. So this was the frame that we used all through last season. We used it for half the fights in the first season. So, it's had some life on it. In terms of Fusion, their vertical disc wasn't spinning for I don't know what reason. I talked to them about it and they didn't know either. Just, they had a lot of rework to do with taking all the ESCs out and putting in the new ones, and it just, for whatever reason, never spun up. And because it was stationary, we were able to take a couple chunks out of it because we were still hitting weapon to weapon. So we just wanted to make sure that if it did turn on, that maybe there was going to be some imbalance issues or something. But yeah, we took a couple gouges out of that. And then in terms of the horizontal, they're using this kind of frame structure with these teeth inserts, and we managed to chip, I think, 2 of the teeth. I can't really tell, but we definitely took out one of them, and then one of the other teeth might have just been chipped. So that would have created a massive instability issue just for the weight distribution. So we did that, and then that was pretty much it. And they sent me a couple of these pictures, which you can see on the inside. The fire just kind of propagated a little bit and made things a little bit toasty inside. But, that's what happens with these things when they get disrupted by these huge hits. So yeah, needless to say, we are very happy with this win, our very first knockout of the season. So we're feeling pretty good, and the bot is finally functioning exactly how it's supposed to work. The drum is deadly, never stops spinning, and the drive is reliable. We're never going to have like the world's best drive because just the nature of the geometry and 2-wheel drive. There's always a lot of discussion about the reliability of Copperhead's drive, but realistically, when it comes down to it, we're resting so much weight on the front drum, and we have these 2 massive wheels. If one wheel goes out, we're dead. So we just kind of have a little bit of an odds game right there. Most people that have four-wheel drive, they can kind of, you know, lose one, maybe even lose two, sometimes lose three, but really if we have one small fault with one wheel, we're dead in the water and we have drive issues. So something to take in mind. One thing that I forgot to mention, I'm going to mention right here, we had a really cool damage photo thing. So this drum is spinning, hardened metal, hardened steel, hits against the other bot. We actually managed to imprint the head of one of the bolts of fusion into the drum. It was such a hard impact that it actually punched the head of the bolt into our drum, as you can see here. It's really cool. You can almost make out the lettering of that, and it was actually embossed in. That wasn't just the paint that chipped away. It was physically embossed into the drum, which is just fantastic. So anyway, hopefully you got something out of this. Thanks for watching. Check out my Instagram linked below, as well as my Facebook, and I will be back for more fight recaps because we got about 7,322 fights left, so I'm going to be sitting in this chair for quite some time. So see you then. Thanks for watching.